Marco Vidal had long been a luminary in the culinary world, his name synonymous with innovation and excellence. With a career spanning decades, he earned accolades and starred in high-profile kitchens across the globe. From Michelin stars to prestigious culinary awards, Marco's culinary contributions were celebrated far and wide. Yet, after years of relentless pursuit of perfection, he found himself yearning for something more: peace, tranquility, and a simpler way of life. Retiring to a charming neighborhood seemed like the ideal escape. Here, he envisioned days filled with quiet reflection and evenings spent creating exquisite dishes from fresh, local ingredients. However, his passion for culinary artistry did not fade with retirement. Rather, it led him to bring along a unique treasure: his elite black IM Semani chickens. Unlike any ordinary breed, these hens were renowned for their striking appearance and rich flavor profile, each one valued at over $5,000. To Marco, they represented not just livestock but an essential part of his gastronomic philosophy. With meticulous care and creativity, Marco constructed a stunning coop for his IM Semani chickens. Nestled amidst blooming flowers and lush greenery, the coop became not only a home for his hens but also a work of art in its own right. As he tended to them each morning, Marco was reminded of the deep connection between craftsmanship and nature, a bond that had fueled his culinary journey. However, the tranquility he sought was quickly disrupted. The local homeowners association, HOA, guided by strict aesthetic rules that prioritized uniformity over individuality, declared Marco's coop an eyesore. Their complaints cited concerns about pests and property values, dismissing Marco's artistic intentions as irrelevant. Undeterred, he passionately explained that his chickens were legal and licensed, essential components of his culinary craft. But the HOA remained unmoved. While Marco was away at a prestigious global culinary event in Italy, the situation escalated dramatically. The HOA took matters into their own hands, dispatching a demolition crew to remove his beloved coop without warning or permission. Marco was miles away when he received the heartbreaking news that several of his rare hens had perished in the destruction. This shocking act ignited something fierce within him. He realized that what he had built was not just a coop. It represented years of dedication and artistry now reduced to rubble. The quiet retirement he had sought was rapidly morphing into a battle for justice, a fight he was determined to win as he returned home with renewed resolve. As Marco settled into his new home, he found solace in the rhythmic clucking of his prized black IM Semani hens. Unlike any other breed, these chickens were renowned not only for their striking all-black appearance from their feathers to their meat, but also for the depth of flavor they brought to his culinary creations. The enchanting birds were more than mere livestock. They were an embodiment of his philosophy on food, representing a unique fusion of art and nature. Each day began with Marco attending to his flock, the sun rising softly behind the horizon. He would stroll through the garden, greeting each hen as if they were cherished friends. Their glossy plumage glistened in the morning light, and their presence inspired a cascade of culinary ideas that danced in Marco's mind. Whether he envisioned rare dishes infused with herbal notes or rich broths showcasing the exquisite flavor profiles of the IM Semani, these hens were vital to every recipe he crafted. Each chicken was worth its weight in gold. At $5,000 each, Marco had invested not only financially but emotionally into this venture. The coop he built adjacent to the house was no ordinary structure. It was a work of art in itself. Designed with intricate details and adorned with natural elements that complemented its surroundings, it became a centerpiece of his backyard. Surrounded by wildflowers and greenery, the coop was a sanctuary echoing Marco's passion for sustainability and craftsmanship. Visitors would often stop to admire it, knowledge that fueled Marco's desire to showcase culinary excellence through these extraordinary birds. However, this serene setting quickly attracted unwanted attention. The local HOA viewed Marco's coop with disdain, labeling it an affront to their strict standards aimed at maintaining uniformity in neighborhood aesthetics. Their initial notice arrived with veiled threats about fines and consequences if he didn't conform to their guidelines. Although Marco explained that his chickens were legal and integral to his culinary endeavor, the HOA was resolute in their opposition, his creative expression rejected and questioned. With every letter and complaint, tensions grew between Marco and the association members. While he wanted nothing more than to share his love for gastronomy in a supportive community, there was a mounting sense of hostility, one that hinted at a brewing storm far beyond mere disputes over property lines. Little did he know that this conflict would soon escalate dramatically while he pursued opportunities in the culinary world abroad, but for now, Marco held dear his newfound home. He remained determined to prove that true artistry could flourish even in the most unlikely of places, even when challenged by those who couldn't see beyond their own narrow confines of expectation. As Marco immersed himself in the peaceful rhythms of his new life, he was caught off guard when the Homeowners Association, HOA, began to take notice of his coop. Initially, he had felt a sense of excitement about being part of a community that appreciated artistry and craftsmanship, but that feeling quickly soured. The HOA, composed of individuals who prioritized conformity and adherence to aesthetic regulations, viewed Marco's coop as a glaring deviation from their vision of neighborhood uniformity. Before long, the first complaint landed on Marco's doorstep, delivered in a neatly typed letter filled with formal language that felt cold and impersonal. The HOA cited concerns over aesthetics and alleged that the coop could attract pests, an assertion Marco found both preposterous and offensive. He believed his creation was more than just an enclosure for hens. It was a testament to his dedication to sustainable farming and culinary excellence. Nevertheless, the HOA's demands were clear: either remodel the coop to fit their standards or face penalties. Determined to stand his ground, Marco took the time to respond thoughtfully. He composed a letter explaining not only the legal ownership of his chickens, but also their significance in his culinary journey. With passion, he articulated how these rare birds represented something far greater than mere livestock. They were key players in his mission to elevate farm-to-table dining. However, his words fell on deaf ears. The HOA remained steadfast in its stance. As complaints accumulated, tensions escalated. Neighbors who once greeted Marco with friendly smiles began to look at him warily, fueled by the HOA's rhetoric. Conversations turned sour as whispers circulated about potential zoning violations and property devaluation. Marco felt increasingly isolated in a place where he had hoped to find camaraderie. Each day became a battle not just for the survival of his hens, but also for his right to express himself as an artist. Fearing that community regulations might stifle his passion entirely, Marco sought opportunities to engage with other local farmers and culinary enthusiasts. These connections reminded him that there were others who understood the beauty of creativity within craftsmanship. Nevertheless, even as he strengthened these bonds, the looming threat from the HOA cast a constant shadow over his efforts. The turning point eventually came during a community meeting when an HOA board member publicly stated that they would take action against any violations of their rules, this time warning specifically about eyesores. It was a chilling remark that solidified Marco's resolve. He would not allow bureaucratic limitations to extinguish his culinary dreams or undermine the dedication he had poured into his work. The battle lines were drawn, and as tensions simmered beneath the surface, Marco prepared himself for what lay ahead, a confrontation that would challenge not only his rights as a resident, but also his very identity as an artist and chef. Amid the tension brewing at home, Marco's culinary career continued to flourish. He was invited to a prestigious global culinary event in Italy, where the world's top chefs and food critics gathered to showcase their talents and innovations. The excitement of participating in this elite gathering filled Marco with pride and anticipation, as he viewed it as an opportunity to reconnect with the culinary community and further his passion for gastronomy. As he prepared for his journey, Marco could hardly contain his enthusiasm, envisioning the exotic ingredients he would encounter and the invaluable connections he might forge. But just as he was about to immerse himself in this magnificent experience, a notification popped up on his phone that shattered his excitement, an urgent email from a neighbor back home. The message was chilling. The HOA had dispatched a demolition crew to his property while he was away and planned to remove his beloved chicken coop. Panic washed over him as he read through the details. The thought of his rare IM Semani hens being left vulnerable filled him with dread. Shock transformed into disbelief as he imagined the swift destruction of what he held dear. The email detailed how the crew had been seen arriving with heavy machinery, complete with warnings that they intended to restore neighborhood aesthetics. In a whirlwind of emotions, Marco felt a deep sense of betrayal. How could the HOA take such drastic measures without any regard for his absence or the importance of his chickens? He had poured his heart into building that coop, nurturing not only the hens, but also his dreams of presenting extraordinary dishes inspired by their unique flavors. Now, it seemed that all of that was poised to collapse under the weight of bureaucracy. Desperate to act despite being thousands of miles away, Marco reached out to local friends and allies who understood his dedication to culinary art. They were shocked at the audacity of the HOA's actions and promised to help. They began documenting everything: photos of his coop, records of complaints lodged against him, and details surrounding the HOA's increasingly aggressive tactics. Meanwhile, as Marco participated in cooking demonstrations in Italy, showcasing gourmet dishes that highlighted sustainability and ethical farming, he couldn't shake off the anxiety gnawing at him. Each dish he created reminded him of what was at stake back home. The vibrant flavors from those heritage hens danced in his mind as a motivation to return stronger than ever. By the time Marco returned home, he was armed not just with culinary accolades, but also with an unwavering resolve to fight back against the injustice inflicted upon him and his beloved hens. The moment he stepped off the plane, he knew a battle awaited him, one that would intertwine his identity as a chef with a quest for justice in the face of an oppressive HOA. Upon returning home, Marco's heart raced as he hurried to his property, fear gripping him like a vice. The landscape was starkly different from what he had left behind. Where his beloved coop once stood proudly adorned with flowers and the soundtrack of clucking hens, there was only a barren patch of earth and debris scattered about. The sight was devastating enough, but as he approached the wreckage, the unthinkable news struck him like a thunderclap. An agonizing phone call from a close friend shattered any lingering hope. Several of his rare I.am Semani hens had tragically perished in the chaos of demolition. Grief hit Marco hard, the loss amplifying his heartbreak over both the destruction of his craft and the vibrant life he had nurtured. Each hen represented countless memories and dreams, each one a part of his culinary identity that could never be replaced. As he surveyed the devastation, images flooded back of those delightful mornings spent tending to his prized birds. He remembered their sleek black feathers shimmering in sunlight and the way they would eagerly peck at the ground as he threw them treats. These were not merely chickens to him. They were essential components of his art, vital to the dishes that showcased their unique flavors. Losing them felt like losing an integral part of himself. Overwhelmed by despair, Marco knelt among the wreckage, fighting back tears. His heart weighed heavy with guilt for being away during such a crucial moment. How could something so beautiful and meaningful be so easily disregarded? The thoughts spiraled through his mind, each one stinging sharper than the last. In that moment of anguish, Marco's resolve began to shift from sorrow to rage. A fire igniting within him as he recalled how passionate he had been about protecting his artistic vision against the oppressive HOA. It became clear, this wasn't just about a coop or some chickens. It was about standing up for creativity and justice against forces that threatened to silence individual expression. With every ounce of heartbreak came determination. He realized that he needed not just to mourn what was lost, but also to fight for what remained and what could still be built anew. Gathering evidence and support alongside friends who documented everything began to feel like an urgent mission, one fueled by both grief and an indomitable will to reclaim his narrative. Each day following brought small steps: meetings with lawyers specializing in agricultural laws, conversations with other local farmers who understood his plight, and planning every detail for what lay ahead. While sitting amidst the remnants of his dream, Marco vowed that this act wouldn't destroy him. Instead, it would fuel a creative resurrection that would honor those precious hens lost too soon. With renewed purpose, he began envisioning how he'd transform this heartbreaking chapter into a powerful testament of resilience, one that would ultimately lead him toward justice for himself and a legacy for all culinary artists facing similar struggles. With a newfound sense of purpose and determination, Marco wasted no time in confronting the HOA's blatant disregard for his rights and the devastating impact of their actions. Knowing that he had to act decisively, he consulted with attorneys who specialized in agricultural law and property disputes. They quickly informed him of the potential claims he could file against the HOA, setting the stage for a legal battle that would test not only his resolve, but also his commitment to justice. Marco chose to file multiple lawsuits, one for the destruction of livestock, as the loss of his rare I.am Semani hens was not merely a financial blow, but a deep emotional wound. Each hen represented years of dedication to his culinary craft, and their loss felt like a part of his identity had been irreparably damaged. He also pursued claims for loss of income, arguing that the chickens were vital to his gastronomic endeavors and future plans that included working on a Netflix food documentary featuring their unique flavors. Lastly, he sought damages for emotional distress. The trauma inflicted by the HOA's actions had taken a profound toll on his mental well-being. As he gathered evidence, Marco meticulously documented everything: the emails exchanged with the HOA, witness statements from supportive neighbors, and photographs showcasing the beauty of his coop before its destruction. He even included testimonials from culinary peers who attested to the importance of his hens in elevating sustainable dining experiences. This was not simply about financial restitution. It was about standing up for what he believed in and fighting back against an oppressive force that threatened creativity and individuality. While Marco prepared for the legal battle ahead, word of his plight began to spread throughout the community. Many residents who initially sided with the HOA began to recognize the injustice of the situation after hearing Marco's story. Some were inspired by his passion and bravery, joining him in support as he prepared to take on the local authority that had wronged him. They organized meetings to rally community backing, emphasizing how important it was to protect individual rights against draconian rules imposed by an overreaching HOA. As court dates approached, Marco balanced his time between legal preparations and continuing his culinary adventures. He hosted small gatherings at his home, crafting dishes inspired by his lost hens while sharing their stories with friends and supporters. Each meal served became a symbol of resilience and creativity, reminders that even in loss, there was still beauty to be found. Ultimately, Marco felt a sense of strength growing within him, a determination fueled by both grief and hope. He understood this fight extended beyond his personal experience. It was about inspiring others facing similar battles against conformity and restrictions. With each passing day, he became more resolved to reclaim not just his chickens, but also his voice as an artist, a mission that would culminate in a thrilling courtroom showdown where justice would be fought for and won. As Marco navigated the legal intricacies of his battle against the HOA, an unexpected twist unfolded that would not only strengthen his case, but also elevate the stakes dramatically. It turned out that his beloved black ayam Cemani chickens were not just a personal project. They were integral to a Netflix food documentary series focusing on extraordinary culinary artisans dedicated to sustainable and ethical farming practices. This revelation added a new layer of significance to his fight and showcased the importance of his craft on a larger scale. The documentary aimed to highlight chefs who were pushing boundaries in the culinary world, and Marco's unique approach with the ayam Cemani hens made him a perfect fit for their narrative. As he communicated with the production team before the demolition, filming had already commenced, with footage showcasing Marco's passion for raising these exceptional birds. Each episode aimed to explore how such heritage breeds contributed distinctly to high-end gastronomy, emphasizing not just their rarity, but also the cultural and ethical dimensions of responsible food sourcing. When Marco unveiled this information during one of his meetings with his legal team, their excitement was palpable. The documentary provided additional evidence of the emotional and financial impacts of the HOA's actions, transforming his case into a matter not only of personal loss, but also of public interest and cultural significance. They quickly strategized on how to leverage this twist to appeal to both legal authorities and public sentiment. As word spread about Marco's connection to the documentary, support began pouring in from those within the culinary community and beyond. Chefs, food critics, and avid viewers rallied behind him, advocating for not just his rights, but for all creators who faced similar battles against conformity. Marco's story became emblematic of broader issues regarding artistic expression and community governance, drawing attention to how regulations can sometimes stifle creativity and innovation. In preparation for court, Marco collaborated closely with the documentary team, who offered to include footage documenting the aftermath of the demolition, the emotional wreckage alongside his fight for justice. This poignant narrative would serve as a powerful visual testimony to counter the HOA's claims and paint a fuller picture of what had been lost. As he pieced together evidence for his lawsuit, emails exchanged with HOA members, heart-wrenching testimonials from fellow chefs inspired by his mission, and clips from filming that highlighted both the artistry involved in raising these hens and their essential role in modern gastronomy, Marco felt buoyed by an unshakable resolve. This was more than just a legal battle. It was a story waiting to be told, a narrative woven into the fabric of culinary tradition and modern advocacy for sustainable practices. With every ounce of support he received and each piece of evidence he gathered, Marco was determined to reclaim what had been taken from him while simultaneously championing a cause larger than himself. a fierce stand for creativity in all its forms against an often narrow mindset that sought to confine it. The day of the courtroom showdown finally arrived, and Marco could feel the tension in the air as he stepped into the imposing building. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, filled with curious onlookers from the culinary community, local residents, and supporters who had rallied around his cause. Everyone sensed that this case transcended Marco's personal loss. It was a battle for creativity, individuality, and justice. As proceedings commenced, Marco's legal team presented their arguments methodically, laying out the groundwork of emotional and financial suffering alongside a strong argument for the chicken's significance in culinary craftsmanship. Each statement resonated with those present. Few knew the depths of Marco's connection to his hens and his art. Then came the moment everyone waited for. Marco stood to present his evidence, a bundle of hope wrapped tightly in video footage recorded during the demolition. He felt his heart race as he initiated the playback on a screen facing both the jury and the judge. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes glued to the projection as images flickered to life. The video displayed the demolition crew wielding heavy machinery against Marco's cherished coop. Amidst their destructive tasks, they were captured laughing and joking about making omelets from his prized birds, a clear display of contempt for both Marco's craft and his way of life. Their flippant disregard shattered any claims that their actions had been necessary or justified. He watched intently as laughter echoed through the video, followed by an audible insult directed at something that had meant everything to him. "Who cares? Just some dumb chickens." Those words were met with exchanged chuckles among crew members, but in that moment they stirred an ocean of outrage within Marco and everyone else in attendance. As the footage played out, Marco could sense a shift in the courtroom atmosphere. It transitioned from skepticism to empathy. Faces twisted into expressions of disbelief as viewers absorbed not just what had been lost, but how little regard was shown for something so beautiful and vital. They could now see, really see, the juxtaposition between artistry and bureaucracy. When the video concluded, silence fell like heavy fog in the room. It became clear that this wasn't solely about property damage or business loss. It was about respect for one's art. The damage inflicted went beyond physical destruction. It embodied a broader fight against conformist ideologies attempting to suppress creativity. Marco felt renewed strength bubbling within him as he addressed those present again. With passionate conviction, he spoke about what these chickens had represented, a legacy defined by hard work, creativity, and sustainability. As he finished speaking, applause erupted throughout the courtroom, awakening a shared sense of justice among those who believed that every artist deserved their voice and space to create without fear. In that defining moment, it wasn't just Marco standing up against an HOA. It was an entire community uniting against conformity, a spirited declaration that creativity must always be nurtured and defended. With every bit of evidence presented, hope burgeoned that justice would indeed prevail against an oppressive system threatening to extinguish artistic expression. The day of the verdict arrived, punctuating weeks filled with unease and anticipation. Marco entered the courtroom, a mixture of determination and apprehension swirling inside him. The air was thick with tension as spectators gathered, all eager to witness the outcome of a case that had captured the essence of artistic integrity versus bureaucratic oppression. Local supporters filled every available seat, their hopeful whispers echoing around him. As the judge entered and settled onto the bench, silence fell over the room. Marco's heart raced. He had come to think of this case not just as a fight for his hens, but as a stand for every artist struggling against conformity and strict regulations. With his legal team by his side, he watched as they presented their closing arguments, crescendos of conviction resonating powerfully through the room. Moments later, the judge called for order and announced that she was ready to deliver her ruling. Every pair of eyes fixed on her as she began to summarize the case's key points: Marco's loss of livestock, the emotional distress caused by the demolition, and how critical his chickens were to his culinary artistry. Each word felt like nails being hammered into place. This was building toward something monumental. Then came the moment everyone awaited. In light of the evidence presented, she began slowly, including significant video documentation showcasing unprofessional behavior by the demolition crew, Marco held his breath, every heartbeat echoing in his ears as she continued. "I find in favor of Marco Vidal." A wave of gasps spread through the courtroom, followed by an eruption of applause. Emotions swirled within him: relief, vindication, and an overwhelming sense of justice long sought finally being served. The judge further stated that Marco would receive compensation for his losses and emotional distress, a sum that represented much more than just financial gain. It stood as acknowledgement from the court that creative expression must be protected against unnecessary punitive measures imposed by others. With tears brimming in his eyes, Marco glanced at those who had supported him throughout this journey, the chefs who had rallied behind his cause, friends who had shown unwavering belief in him, and neighbors who believed in preserving creative voices in their community. This victory transcended personal recompense. It established a precedent for local farmers and artisans facing similar challenges. As he stepped out into the sunlight after leaving the courthouse, a sense of empowerment washed over him. It was not solely about winning, but rather about sending a thunderous message that creativity could not be extinguished so easily. Marco felt invigorated. He was ready to take back what was lost and forge ahead with renewed passion. In that moment, he knew he would reclaim not only what had been taken from him, but also establish a legacy representing resilience, one whose story resonated with each dish he would create moving forward. As he envisioned transforming the HOA president's foreclosed house into a vibrant tasting restaurant called the Coop, he realized that every plate would carry stories of justice won and hope restored, a testament to artistic perseverance against petty regulations. With the ink barely dry on the court's ruling, Marco stood outside the foreclosed house of the former HOA president, a wide grin spreading across his face. This once controversial property, now his, was transformed into a canvas for a new chapter in his life. The house had been a symbol of oppression, a place where creativity was stifled, but Marco was determined to turn it into a beacon of inspiration and culinary innovation. He envisioned it as the Coop, an upscale tasting restaurant where every dish would tell a story of triumph and resilience. As workers began to renovate the space, Marco meticulously planned the menu. Each dish would feature ingredients sourced from local farms and highlight the rich flavors of the black ayam cemani hens that had been at the heart of his journey. He wanted diners to experience not just exquisite taste, but also the narrative behind each offering. Every plate would represent a fusion of sustainability and artistry, a tribute to the chickens that had endured so much alongside him. Marco's culinary team quickly came together, comprised of chefs who shared his vision and passion for ethical farming practices. They understood the importance of storytelling through food and embraced Marco's mission to create a space that celebrated creativity in all its forms. The kitchen abuzz with excitement, they tested recipes that showcased the unique qualities of the ayam cemani chickens, dishes that invited guests to savor the unexpected depths of flavor they brought to the table. As opening day approached, anticipation permeated the atmosphere. The community rallied behind Marco's vision, eager to support a restaurant that stood against conformity and championed artistic expression. Word spread about the Coop, not just as a restaurant, but as a movement symbolizing resilience against restrictive governance. People were curious about how each meal would embody justice garnished with the bittersweet lessons learned throughout Marco's battle. On opening night, guests filled the dining room, their faces glowing with excitement and curiosity. Marco welcomed each patron personally, sharing snippets of his story, the loss, the fight, and ultimately the triumph that led them to this moment. Each dish served was accompanied by tales of hope and justice, making every bite rich with meaning. From ayam cemani egg custards infused with garden herbs to succulent roasted chickens served with seasonal vegetables, each plate was meticulously crafted to honor both culinary artistry and sustainability. Guests savored not just food but also a narrative, a reminder that behind every dish lay a story worth telling. As laughter and conversation filled the Coop, Marco felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. This restaurant was more than just a business. It was a testament to what could flourish when one stood firm against adversity. The bittersweet taste of HOA tears was now juxtaposed against each delightful flavor, a delicious reminder that creativity could not only survive but thrive when defended passionately. In that moment, amid friends, supporters, and fellow artisans, Marco realized he had reclaimed not only what had been lost, but had forged a legacy that would inspire future generations. A legacy built on courage, authenticity, and an unwavering dedication to the art of cooking.